Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Frank About Health with my special guest today, Dr. Dale Atkins, who is a child developmental psychologist and who has a very interesting book that we are going to feature today during the show, especially since this is part of my Voices of Disruption series. If you're watching the show, the date is November 13th, 2025. So therefore, we are going ahead and accepting questions and answers only by email on this show. Usually I accept them live, but due to the sensitive nature of the topics that we will be discussing, including featuring the Turquoise Butterfly, the book written by Dale Atkins, it is targeted to all the viewers out there that are very much interested in understanding how generational, whether you call it trauma or relations or even just generational experience, is important between the generations as we go through constant change and disruption. And that's why I will issue a disclaimer, which is these are the thoughts and views of Dale Atkins and of our conversation today, but they are not the views of talkradio.nyc or of the show Frank About Health. Yet, if you are interested in knowing deeply how your relationship with your grandparent or your grandchild, depending on who you are, has a very important impact in our lives going forward, this is the show for you. That being said, Dale, when you unmute, I want you to feel free to give me your entire background. I like to introduce people with their academic and research experience and so forth and so on. But because of the sensitive nature of this book, which I really want to focus on today, I'll let you go into your biography with our audience.
Well,
And
thank
welcome
you.
to Frank About Health.
Thank you, Frank. It's really an honor to be with you, and I appreciate being in your group of disruptors. I feel very, very strongly that change is happening all around us.
Yes.
And when I give you my biography, you'll see that it was also a change that led to another change that led to another change, which has led to all of the books that I've written and this first children's book.
Yes.
I studied at NYU for my bachelor's. I studied at Teachers College in what was then called special education um, for my master's, and I studied at UCLA for my doctorate in early childhood and developmental studies. And I have a license to practice psychology in New York, which I've been doing for about 45 years.
Very
And
nice.
I work a lot with families, with individuals. I've done a lot of work globally because I really think that being able to provide our families with support in every way that we can, working with
Mhm.
communities, working within communities, whether that's a neighborhood, um, whether it's a school community, a religious community, that we really need support. And I've written 8 books. Each has been a record, I would say, of something that I was going through within my own life, and then wanted to share in some way because it reflected on the society at the time. So I've written books about getting along better with your aging parents before you're in a
Mhm.
position to take care of them. I've written about sibling relationships. I've written books about marriage, about pre-marriage, about weddings. I've written books about balance in your life and about raising children with special needs. So it's been a reflection of what I've been interested in, what I've studied, what I've worked with when I work with families and or individuals. And as
Yes.
my career progressed, I started working with individuals and families around issues having to do with transitions. And transitions are often filled with stress. You
Hmm.
mentioned intergenerational trauma. People
Yes.
have trauma that they revisit as adults from childhood, and people are also dealing with loss,
Yes.
anticipatory loss. And that could
Hmm.
be a person, it could be a job, it could be a house, it could be a sense of security.
Hmm.
So my work reflects a lot of what's going on in the world. And I came to write The Turquoise Butterfly because I became a grandmother myself. I have 6 grandchildren. And I had an incredible mother whose name was Sylvia, and
Yeah,
I wanted to honor her. And I know we'll talk about that a bit later and we'll get into the
absolutely.
book, but it was
Hmm.
very much a part of my own development and my own mourning and wanting to honor her, as I said, because she was an outstanding grandmother and great grandmother. And I really wanted to talk about and present to families the
Yes.
different ways that grandparents and intergenerational relationships, not just grandparent to grandchild, but aunt to uncle and
Hmm.
wonderful neighbor who's a friend as a family. These relationships are so incredibly beneficial to the children as well as to the adults. And I hope we'll
Right.
have a chance to talk about how they're beneficial and how they
Yes.
continue to ground us, particularly in a world that is going through some very, very serious and challenging times for families.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can relate on many levels as we had during our first interview together behind the scenes. But I do want to focus on the premise of your book in section two of this episode of Frank About Health. And then I think after the midway through, we'll have a chance to really flesh out all of the different dynamics that occur between generations, whether they are grandparental or parent to child or siblings or other kinds of dynamics that we always know about. Now, let me ask you, out of my own curiosity, I have a degree in neuropsychology from NYU. I was interested to know why developmental psychology became your interest or your passion.
I was working with a group of families and children and other professionals in the field of special education, and
Ah,
my specialization was children who had hearing impairments
mm,
and deafness and
yes,
issues having to do with hearing. And I was working within this population, and I saw so many behaviors, not only within the children, but also parenting expectations and grandparent expectations and interactions with siblings that I thought were quite normal in the range of normal development, but
right,
yet I felt that they were constantly being attributed to the fact that this child was in some way different slash special, just unique. And
right,
so a lot of what I thought was normal behavior within the normal range was, as I said, being attributed to the fact that this child was different. And it didn't make any sense to me. So I figured that I wanted to learn more about the whole range of what we then called normal behavior and normal development and just child development in in total. And so that's why I wanted to study in that area. And then that
interesting.
actually led me to more work within the family, the whole family. And the first book that I wrote was called Sisters, and it was
Yes,
really about sibling relationships. It started off as what is unique about the sibling relationships in families where there is a child who is in some way different or not the expected child that was awaited for. And and
interesting.
and so that's really how I got into this. And then I wanted to study clinical psychology. And so my background kind of channeled me into the
Yes,
world of psychology from education. And I like combining the two because I love to teach and I love to do seminars. And I find that working with families is really very helpful. And I'll add that because my dad had Alzheimer's disease many, many, many
ah,
years ago, he's been gone for 30 years. It was
understood.
at that juncture that I then really wanted to study more about family dynamics when one is in the caregiving role in a context where in those days very little was known about Alzheimer's and there was very little support. So how families, how individuals cobble together what it
Yes,
is they need to do and how dealing with that and managing the stress and managing social situations that may have been supportive but may be falling by the wayside. All
right.
of that kind of informed how I wanted to write this book because it is about, we'll talk about it later, but it is about an intergenerational relationship that
Yeah.
changes.
You know, it's amazing. I'm listening to everything you've just said. It mirrors a lot of how I launched Frank About Health. Being an epileptic
Oh,
individual, going through caregiving with my family and my cousin, who also is in a nursing home with Alzheimer's disease, having to deal with the stress, understanding the family dynamics are constantly broken for various reasons. It could be education, it could be narcissism, it could be a lack of understanding, it could be whatever's going on in the environment. And this show allowed me to come and focus everything by talking to individuals such as yourself that reflect on either how I handled it or what I did wrong or what I could do to improve. Now, what you've just said also brought the it answered my question as to why you focus on developmental psychology, but I could see you're the type of individual that when you see an individual with a difference, in this case, the child that was deaf, you try to figure a way to adjust what is considered normal to much more acceptable to the child in this case.
I
And that
think that,
whole
yeah.
ability to shift is the talent that you hold within you.
Well, I appreciate your saying that. I think our
Mhm.
goal is to try to adapt to whatever
Yes,
situation we're in without degrading either the situation or the person involved, and
right.
really never losing sight of the humanity of the way we interact with a person and their humanity. Because even if someone is less capable in some ways, they are still deserving of respect and care and love and
Yeah.
kindness. And,
Yes.
my previous book that I wrote a few years ago with my niece was called The Kindness Advantage. And one of the things that I think we must be conscious of in the way we deal with anybody, family members or not, political adversaries or not, anybody, is
Yes.
not to forget that we lead with kindness. And sometimes it's very hard.
Very
So I
hard. Yes.
think that that's more of a guiding light for me as I work with families, um, because it's so easy to blame something or someone. And it's not as easy to try to adapt to a situation that is really very challenging, but to preserve our own integrity and to foster the humanity between us and that other person. And
Yes.
that's something that I think we all can strive for, but we need support to do that.
Now we're about to take our first break, but I think when we come back and we start talking about the turquoise butterfly, that is going to serve as, I would call it, the prototype for how generational education through the child and the grandchild can help foster that kindness and that way of being able to adapt. Thanks so much for everything you've just said. I'm already looking forward to continue our discussion on the turquoise butterfly. But everyone, please stay tuned right here on talkradio.nyc and on our social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And again, if you have any questions during this show, you can email me, frankrharrison1 @gmail.com, or Dale Atkins at
drdaleatkins.com, and it's DRDALEATKINS.com. But I must say that I will have to put my email on because I didn't have it on for our conversation.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's like
Oh,
you'll
okay.
probably get the questions. Remember, on the 13th of November, that's when the questions will be sent over
Right,
to you.
right.
All right, everybody, please stay tuned. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a conscious co creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills, on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. As promised, we are now going to hear a lot from Dr. Dale Atkins and her book, The Turquoise Butterfly. There is a caption right in front of me that I'm going to read to everyone. And of course, we're going to hear about the book in detail with some quotes from Dr. Dale. Is that okay? I call you Dr. Dale? Okay, but at the same time, be aware that this extraordinary story is a celebration of eternal love and transformation, beautifully illustrating the profound bond between a grandmother and her granddaughter. Change can be embraced with courage and resilience, and the transformative power of love can bridge any gap. The Turquoise Butterfly explores our unique strengths and vulnerabilities in this heartwarming, multi-generational tale. It is available for pre-order right now on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. But as the segment ends, we will know where you can get this as soon as possible. Dale, welcome back. And I can't wait to hear all about the story in detail and how it relates to a lot of the practice that you have done over your career.
Thank you, Frank. It's really a joy to be with you and to talk with you and your listeners about the book. It is really a tribute and an inspiration. It's a tribute to my mom, and it was inspired by her. And I know that you would like me to tell the story a little bit, so I'll tell you just a little bit about this little girl whose name is Victoria, and she is adventurous. However, she is hesitant, and she feels some anxiety whenever she goes into a new situation, and she has butterflies in her belly, and sometimes that prevents her from doing things. But her grandmother, with whom she spends a summer, every summer alone with her grandmother, is really an adventurer, and she presents as a butterfly, and she's fluttering around, she's doing interesting things. And so when they're together, Victoria, starts to feel a little bit more bold, and her grandmother encourages her, but gently, with patience, with understanding, step by step. And they try new things, and they do all kinds of things while they're together. One day they'll go to the library, another day they'll walk the shelter dogs, they go to the playground, and then they pick what they're going to do. And one day they go to the water's edge, they go to the shore because the grandmother lives near a beach. And they're having a grand old time. And here I'll just show the people who are watching some of the illustrations, which are so delightful. The book is illustrated by a woman named Angelina Jones, and she is just remarkable. And excuse me, Amelina. And so here we are. They've just been spending the whole week together, and they're coming up to Friday. On Friday, Grandma had a new adventure. Victoria's belly butterfly swished. Victoria and Grandma held hands as they swam into the shallows at the beach, spying on the silvery fish that darted around them. Just then, the current swirled and the sea stirred. A wave pulled Grandma and Victoria apart. Victoria tried to swim, but the current was too strong. Her belly thumped. I can't touch the bottom. Grandma reached out for Victoria's hand. Lean back, spread your wings, just like a butterfly, and the current will carry us to where it's safe. Then Grandma sang, butterfly, butterfly in the sky, like a flower floating by. When you see a butterfly blue, know that I am there with you. Victoria sang along as they floated down the shore. When they could touch, They walk to their blanket or a nap. This is one part of the book where we see that the granddaughter is really very frightened, but through calmness and presence and gentleness and really trying to teach her what I like to refer to as a mantra, something that she can go to when she feels very, very scared, the grandmother shows the little girl that she's going to be okay. Very often when we work with children who have anxiety, we try to teach them ways to calm themselves internally. And sometimes being able to repeat a few words, something that's meaningful to them, something that can make them feel grounded and connected with someone or someplace really does work. So I integrated that into the book. And then I also wanted, as a reminder, you may be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of basic needs. The
Yes.
very first hierarchies in the listing have to do with being safe and protected,
Yes.
and then feeling love and security. And
Right.
so I think that grandparents, when the grandmother reached out her hand, when they floated together, when they were really connected, the child began to feel more secure, more safe. And this was in really a very tumultuous moment.
Yes. Yes.
But if we don't have to be in a tumultuous moment. If we sense that a younger person is feeling unsteady or uncomfortable, we can reach out our hand. We can talk to them gently. We can talk to them and listen to what it is they're concerned about, and really take their concern seriously and say, I can understand how you would feel that way. Why don't we try and do this, and it might make us feel a little lighter or a little less frightened. So that's what I was trying to do in that portion. And then, of
Yes.
course, they go back, and Grandma Sylvia is now exhausted, because here is this person who is always fluttering around, but she's exhausted because she's old and she's tired, and she too had a bit of a throw in the water, but she was
Right.
trying very hard to take care of her granddaughter. So this is the first time in the book when we see the granddaughter, Victoria, try to take care of the grandmother. And so she brings her tea. And so we see a little bit of a change and an awareness of caregiving, and how caregiving can also be a model for intergenerational relationships. And the little girl says, well, we're still having an adventure. And yes, we're having an adventure. We just have to adapt. So they go and they look in the butterfly garden and they see a chrysalis, and it's about adaptation and understanding that you can be disappointed that something didn't work out, but
Right.
what do we get from that? So the grandmother is a wonderful role model. And then the little girl goes away, and then she gets a year older, and so does the grandmother. So the next time when they're together, the grandmother now is on a cane, and little girl is leading her, and she is now planning their next gathering. So where do they go? They go to the butterfly farm, and the little girl has planned this over the year. And she's, as I said, she's getting a little bolder. Well, what happens? They get
Mm.
lost. And the grandmother now is the one who's frightened and who is really feeling out of sorts. And so it's the granddaughter that remembers and sings her the song, and a ranger hears them singing. So we go through not only watching how the type of relationship shifts, and I don't want to say that the child becomes the grandparent and the grandparent becomes the child, because I don't believe
Right.
that. I
Yes.
believe that we learn techniques of how to care for a person when they are in the stage of development that they're
Yes.
in. And someone may be acting as if they are frightened as a child, but they are just frightened. They're not a
Mm.
child, unless they are. And so we deal
Yes.
with them with the respect that they still need and deserve. And we
Yes.
deal with that person with dignity, just as we want to deal with a child with dignity. So when at the second summer, when they leave, they have a wonderful butterfly hug, and they are very engaged. And then, of course, another year goes by, and Grandma Sylvia dies. And her
Ah.
and her mother, I mean, Victoria's mother comes to school and is waiting for her. And then we see how this little girl goes through all of the emotions that she has missing her grandmother.
Wow.
And she keeps developing. She's a year older, and she decides that she's bold enough that she's going to try and go to camp. And she goes to camp. And wouldn't you know that when she lands, when she gets off the bus, there's a beautiful turquoise butterfly that lands right there. And so she feels connected. So the other
Yes.
part of this book that I really was very, very serious about trying to get the message across about is how we help children deal with impending passing of the people that they love, and
Right.
also how can we prepare them and what can we sensitize them to as far as signs that are around them. Now when this girl sees the butterfly, she'll always think of her grandmother, and she might even sing the little song when she's afraid.
Yes.
So it's really not only about how we can be present for our grandchildren, it's also how we can help them prepare for when we are not any longer going to be here. So what is our legacy? What do we want to leave them with? What do we want them to have internalized about the lessons about life that we can help them with? And I think that these are all very important messages. I'll share with you that I've gotten quite a lovely number of responses from people who've read the book, and so
Yes.
many have said something like, if not this, which is what someone said, I'd wished I'd had this when I was younger, when my grandfather died, because it would have been so much more helpful to
Right.
understand how to deal with the death of my grandparent. And grandparents for many children are the first people that they'll lose. And these are very, very close relationships. So
Hmm.
if we can be conscious of how we live with them and what we want to be for them when we are here and when we're not here, so that the memory lives on, the occasions live on, they will be able to remind themselves and feel sad but good about what it was they shared with their grandparent. And that's
Mm.
just the benefit for the child. I mean, they learn so much about their history. They learn about their parents through their grandparents, the
Right.
stories that they tell. And they also learn about the traditions that only this particular family has, and the ancestral stories, as well as the different personalities. And they
Mm.
get to read different personalities and different situations through the eyes of the grandparents, whose eyes are different from the eyes of their parents.
Wow. Now, I already have so many questions, and yet we're ready for our second break. So I will ask you them in the beginning of our third section, but I would like to take the remaining time for you to tell people how they can go onto your website and get the book directly from the publisher.
Oh, thank you. Well, my website is www.drdaleatkins.com. And again, that's DRDALEATKINS.com. And you could go directly online to Mascot Books, because this is published by Mascot Books, which is the children's division of Amplify Publishers. And that
Okay.
would be mascotbooks.com/product/the hyphen turquoise hyphen butterfly slash. So that's https://mascotbooks.com/product/the hyphen turquoise hyphen butterfly slash. But if you go to my website, you can find it there. And if you
Right.
do go to Mascot Books, you can get the book in just a few days. The official publication date is January 6th. So if you pre-order it at a bookstore or Amazon or Barnes and Noble, as you said, Frank, you will
Mhm.
probably receive it around the first of the year.
Okay. And then, of course, also we will have a QR code right there for everyone to see so they
And
can.
the QR code, I think that is going to be shown, and that's what it is. And you can go directly there.
Yes.
Yes. And I
Okay.
hope that you will buy it and enjoy it. And I think it will be a wonderful conversation starter. A few
Yes.
parents have bought it for their parents, the grandparents,
Yes.
and that's been a very nice thing to hear about.
Awesome. All right, everybody. We're going to go to commercial break, and I will flip the screen to show the page on her website that features the book. And then I will ask my questions about the book when we return. So please stay tuned. We'll be back in a few.
Misalignment within your sales team or with a client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Have you ever wondered what truly lies beneath the calm? I'm Jacinta Yang. Join me every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Talk Radio NYC as we explore healing, self-discovery, and the space where science meets spirits to help you find peace in a busy world. Take a deep breath and tune in to Beneath the Calm, where every conversations guide you back to the calm within.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Basically, I've already had a chance to preview the book, and at the same time, when I'm hearing Dr. Dale Atkins' description about that last scene where the grandmother dies and then she sees the turquoise butterfly, the one thing that came to my mind, and I want to know if that's the way you felt, Dr. Dale, when you wrote it, is that the turquoise butterfly was her grandmother. Would that be a fair assessment? Unmute first. It's okay.
That is a very fair assessment. First of all, this is my experience when my mother's, I call it her totem, is a butterfly. And I see a butterfly and I just feel this connection. And I think that she's very with me, very much with me. I do feel that it's important for children to know that they can feel the presence of people that they love, whether they are with us or not. And after they pass away, that they might be able to tap into the energy, the sense of the person to remind them, we're going to be having Thanksgiving coming up soon. And I think that when you're sitting at a holiday table, if your grandparent or someone that you care deeply about from another generation used to be there and isn't, you talk about them. And I always use my grandmother's dishes, and that's, it's part of the tradition. But specifically, yes, I believe that it's important for people to be able to openly say, I hear this song and it reminds me of my uncle. Oh, how my uncle did blah, blah, blah. And we had so much fun together. I think there's something about the eternality of love and the eternality of the connection. It is often said in very many traditions that a person dies twice. Once when their body no longer functions, and once when people stop saying their name. And I think that for me, it is essential for people to keep the memory of the people that they cared about alive. And the way that we do this is to not only honor them in the choices that we make in the way we live, but in keeping the stories, the lessons, the failures and the triumphs. Sometimes we have a sense, and I don't know, maybe we think we have an obligation to create a fantasy about a person after they've died, either very, very fondly or in a way that we're not really happy with them. And I think that when we notice qualities, traits, characteristics in other family members and we point them out and say, you're very sensitive with dogs, or you're so great with animals. Your uncle used to be, your aunt used to be, did you know your aunt raised dogs? To make a connection, to try and help children feel that
Yes.
they are part of a longer line of just what's here right now. And
Right.
that has to do with all kinds of lessons and all kinds of connections. One could be religion, one could be the customs of tradition, whatever it is, but to
Right.
not shy away from that. And the children really do seem to enjoy that, to pay attention to stories, not in a pedantic teaching, shaking your finger way, but just
Yes.
this is what we did, this is who we are, this is what we recall. And and it gives, I mentioned it before, it gives the child and the parent and grandparent a sense of purpose and meaning, but it
Yes.
also has this sense of connection. And as people get significantly older, sometimes what accompanies that is an intense feeling of loneliness and disconnection. So
Yes.
when you're conscious of that, you want to try and prevent that from happening in a way that can be at least tempered with
Yes.
keeping engagement. So, what better way to engage than in an intergenerational relationship? It's also very, very good for the physical well being of a person.
Yes.
And it's also very good for the mental and the spiritual well being of a person. And, it strengthens the bonds because
Mm-hmm.
you are in a position of, again, what is your legacy, but what are the things that you learned that you would like to share? And it's, again, it's not pedantic, it's just being in the company of someone and doing things, and that, oh, this reminds me of, or this is
Yes.
reminiscent of. And those are the things that kids remember. And then they can teach us. They can teach us. I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't be able to be on this call with you had I not had a grandchild show me exactly how to do what I need to do. But additionally, to keep myself engaged
Yes.
with music, with just pop culture,
Yes.
and to share in that way is really quite remarkable. I also think that it helps younger people to value
Right.
aging
Yes.
while noticing many of the challenges that come along with aging. And
Yes.
if they are given a model of someone who is patient with them and empathetic with them and kind with them, they hopefully will internalize those characteristics
Mm-hmm.
and be patient and empathetic and
Yes.
kind with the people that they care about.
I could see that the relationship between Victoria and her grandmother was to be able to complete a circle by the time,
Yes,
not only when she passed, but
yes.
also to be in the position to be almost at the full circle moment when her own mother or father. I didn't fully understand if it was just a mother or if she had both parents with her. But at the same time, she needs to be in the position to care for them as they're aging. So the bond between her and her grandmother helps to invoke within her her strengths to be able to give back what she was given when she was a child.
I really appreciate that that's what you took from this, because that was very much my intention. And
Mm,
so much more so because in so many families, we have grandparents and great uncles and great aunts living far away. So we don't see
yes.
them in the day to day. And sometimes when we do see them, they may not be as well as they were. The children have grown much more than the last time they saw. And we need to adapt to that fact, but also have opportunities to be engaged given where everybody is. And
Yes.
you kind of pick up where you left off in some ways, and in other ways you begin with a new foundation for a new beginning. But you have to be very present, and you have to be very conscious and notice what's going on and deal with what you notice within
Yes.
yourself. And
Yes.
if there is the type of communication in the family where one discusses what one is conscious of and what one sees, which is not the case in every family. You can really talk about, last time when I was here, we walked to the lake. I'm not walking to the lake so well unless I hold your hand or unless we sit at the bench. I'd like to do it, but it's not the same experience. We'll have a
Right.
different experience, right?
Right. Right. I
And
guess it
yeah,
makes me question. Oh, I'm sorry. I
yes,
interrupted
no,
you.
please.
Oh, I was going to say it makes me question, though, that it appears, and I could be just making a generalization here, but it appears that we live in a society that in the last, I don't know if it's 30 years, 40 years, maybe even as far as 50 years, where there's so much dysfunction and disintegration with family systems that as a result, that full circle moment is not fully educated until the moment of crisis, or possibly um, there are family dynamics, rivalry dynamics, or other things that get into play to actually divide the bonds that are developed between whether it's the child and the grandparents, or the child and the regular parents, or the direct parents. But my question is that, there's obviously a psychological reason for that. It's not just I'm going to come in and disrupt everybody's dynamics. What would you say is the basis for how, even though your book exemplifies the perfect scenario for a child, what is the reason for the constant state of disruption in these family systems today?
I appreciate the question. I think I'd like to address it in a few parts.
Sure, sure.
Okay. One
Mhm.
is that we only have this moment.
That's
So
right.
this book took place in a week with this grandmother and granddaughter. The following summer, with another family, they may not have that week together. So we have this moment that we have. And whatever is happening in this moment, we must not lose sight of what our goal is as a grandparent or as a great aunt or whomever the older person is. And that's why I'm not discussing it from the perspective of the child, because if the child is, let's say, in a situation where one of the parents says, I'm not going to let you see your grandparents, or I'm not comfortable with your grandparent, whatever it is, the grandparent still has a role. And what is their goal? Well, they may not be able to see them, and maybe they're going to be banned from seeing them for whatever reason. I mean, we have all along the spectrum. So that would be a disruption, to use your word, in the family. But what does
Right,
that mean for the grandparent? Does the grandparent say, oh, well, I tried, I can't do anything? I don't think so. I think the grandparent obviously must deal with what the situation is, in fact, in reality, and emotionally. So, which would, I think, would be huge disappointment, and expectations of what they had thought they would have as their role, engagement. But that doesn't mean that they are totally banished, even if they are banished, because they still have opportunities, for instance. And I just spoke with someone yesterday. So it's actually it's very much in my mind, and I know that it can work.
yeah,
Something not dissimilar to what you just presented happened to someone I know, and we were on the phone, and I suggested that she think of her role now in a different perspective. And I said, you're a great storyteller and you're a great
hmm
writer. Why
hmm
don't you write down some stories that you would love to share with your grandkids? And she was a great traveler. She is a great traveler. And write a story about the places that you would have liked to take them and why you would have liked to take them there.
right,
And I also suggested to her that she talk into her phone, in, how you can dictate, and tell the story first. So that at some point, you don't know, tomorrow may be different, next year may be different, she'll have recorded this story. And this is just so that she can feel a connection and want to give the information and the stories about people in her family. I suggested that she tells little stories about the grandchild's parents, who are her children. One of them is
right,
her children, and and just small clips, just small stories, and put them as a collection. And it relieved her distress, because she felt there was something that she actually could do. She wants to be the grandparent who's involved,
Right.
but right now she can't be because the door is shut. But that doesn't mean that she can't still do something that at some point, whether she's here or not here, may be available to her
Mhm.
grandchildren, and they will know who she was, what she was about, and they will feel her love. And
Mm.
is it ideal? Of course not.
Right.
Is it doable? Definitely. Is it satisfactory? Maybe. It depends on how we look at it. But I do feel that it's very, very important for people to be able to work through the emotional disappointments and dashed expectations that they encounter throughout life with everyone, but particularly with grandchildren.
Mm.
Often, the family members don't understand that one of the things about aging is that you're very aware of the end of life and that it's a whole lot closer than when you were a parent yourself or when you were a child. And other people in the family may not recognize that engaging in relationships, quality relationships, are very, very important for many older people because they realize that they're not going to have a lot of time and they
Mm.
want to utilize the time that they have. So when this is not recognized or just can't be overcome for whatever reason, the older person still needs to live a life that is rich and full and engaged.
Mhm.
And additionally to what I just suggested, I really, really believe that familial ties are not the only ties that are worthwhile and worth nurturing. There are
Right.
so many opportunities for intergenerational relationships with great value
Yes.
where we can foster and we can really cultivate and nurture relationships with children of people who are not related to us. And also, if you're old enough, younger people are people from not necessarily in childhood, but in their midlife years. And those people can be real friends and they can be dynamic,
Ooh.
engaged relationships.
I was just so engaged in your conversation. We're going to take our final break and be back. I
Okay.
apologize. I just loved everything you said. Everybody, please stay tuned. We'll be back in a few. On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Jesse, when you get a chance, tell me how much time we have left in this segment. This is our wrap-up segment and our promotional segment for everything, including your book, and how we qualify you as a disruptor, someone who sees a dynamic and knows there's a way to repair it or help it or improve on it, because we are living in these kinds of times right now. I was just so engaged in everything you were just saying. It's incredible about how everybody fundamentally wants that connection with their grandchildren, their children, their parents, their siblings, whomever. But for some reason, there's this ongoing trend of dysfunction where people are fighting for territory over who is closer to whom, or I mean, I go from the model that it's a narcissistic triangulation, but that's just a label. That doesn't fit every case. I think it's fundamentally at the core of when they were children and whether or not they learned the right skill set, because it is generational. You mentioned earlier about the DNA in our grandparents that we pass down. You know, if we love music and we now learn that our grandmother or grandfather was a guitar player, it speaks in our DNA, which motivates us to have an interest. But the same thing could be said for if there was disruption in the grandparents' lives when they were children, it gets passed down in terms of lack of adequate communication or a lack of adequate knowledge in how important it is to have familial bonds. And those kinds of things I unfortunately see as the norm. Is that fair to say, or am I misreading it? Oh, and unmute. Sorry.
Sorry. It may
It's
be
okay.
the norm in where you're seeing it. And yes, there's a lot of dysfunction. I I don't think I'm unrealistic. I do tend towards optimism, and I
Okay.
always have hope. I believe that we adapt. When we don't adapt and when we fight, when we say, oh, I wish this person were more like that. I wish that they would do this. I wish that, yes, that would be nice, but that's not what we've got. How do we work with what we have? And how can we engage in a way in our families that can be good enough instead of fighting, instead of trying to do it her way, because we have to do it that way.
Right.
Just why don't we do it her way? Unless it's painful or hurtful, let's just do it her way because it's her house and it's her kid. So let's do it her way. I think that in the world of grandparenting, one of the things that's really great is, when you're with the kids alone, you have them all to yourself. I don't suggest you disrespect a parent's parenting, but I think that you also have an opportunity to have input of the way you are going to relate to this child in a way that hopefully is respectful
Right.
and safe and encouraging and loving. I
Yeah.
mean, really at the core is, why do we feel that there's a finite amount of love? I
Right.
want you to love me more than your other grandmother. What is that? What is that message? The message is, how lucky can you be to have so many people who love you? And everyone shows their love in a different way. This one has this talent, this has this talent, this one likes to be quiet, this one likes to be engaged. It's, if we don't judge it, if we don't say it's better or it's much more fun, or I mean, maybe it's more fun at certain times of your life, but then maybe later it's going to be more fun or even different and engaging with this person. So each of us has to come to the party with what we have. We can't be who
Right.
we're not. The
Right.
dysfunctional part is disturbing because it prevents us from being able to really be open-hearted and trusting because we're suspicious. Someone's
Yeah.
trying to get us, someone's going to trap us, someone's going to say something that's going to hurt us. When you're defensive and when you're really concerned that you're going to be hurt, you don't feel safe. And as I said
Right.
before, that's one of the five basic, it is the basic element of being able to develop wholly. And so when we
Yes.
don't have things that are basic to our development, we hopefully
We
work
get
on
stuck.
that. We get stuck, but hopefully we will look for other people in our lives who can help to mend and help to give us what we need. But we
Yes.
also need to pay attention to feed ourselves what we need and not keep feeding ourselves that which is unhealthy for us. Back
Right.
to the grandparent and the intergenerational experience,
Hmm.
I think what's important is that when you're in a family, you have to recognize what the rules are and who sets the rules. I'm reminded of Fiddler on the Roof, the papa, the mama. Well, okay. And then the next generation, the next one is the papa. So what happened to the other papa? Who's making the rules and
Yes.
who is dictating the limitations of who can do what and who can say what? I
Yes.
mean, again, we're coming up to Thanksgiving, and well, this person's going to be here. We can't talk about that. Or that person's going to be over there. She won't like to sit next to that one. And you can make yourself crazy, or you can say, let's try and just set a table with love, and try not to engage in a way that is going to be really challenging, in a way that is going to be hurtful,
Right.
because we are together. And what does that mean in this family? What does it mean for a family to be together? Do
Hmm.
we do we talk about our history? Do we talk about ancestors? Do we talk about what we're doing now to engage in a community? I think that sometimes, as I said before, we don't want to lose sight of who we are and what our goal is as a
Hmm.
grandparent. I will just share with you that someone shared a story that they were at a birthday party, and the grandmother wanted to sit next to the birthday girl, who wanted to sit next to somebody else, and that didn't work out too well. Well, it wasn't up to the little girl to take care of her grandmother. It was up to the grandmother to take care of herself. And yes, she could feel badly about it, but you know what? This happens, and you can engage at a different time. But
Yeah.
if an adult is sulking at the table, it's not good for most of the rest of the guests.
Well, we're about to end the show, but I just want to give a few comments. Everybody, you must get this book. I already showed you the QR code. I've already shown you the website. At the same time, you mentioned earlier, Dale, about the Maslow hierarchy of needs. One of the things that you just said rang true to me, that a lot of people don't reach the final hierarchy, which is self-actualization. And
Correct.
I think it's a lot of the dysfunction that occurs along the journey that prevents that. But this is a show, after all, targeted towards my Voices of Disruption campaign. You definitely fit the bill as one who's trying to show how everyone can get back on the right path. Do you have any comment as to the chaos that is going on in our society today and how that may play a part in what's going on?
Thank you for asking.
Okay.
My comment is that we have control over how we respond to the chaos. We may not be able to affect the chaos, but we have control over how we manage our own stress in relation to the chaos. And we can do what we can do, starting within our families and our local communities. And we can affect change by using our voice in a way that is respectful and
Hmm.
powerful and action oriented, but we don't want to lose sight of our humanity. No matter what's going on around us, we have to be human to one another. We have to be respectful. We have to see the humanity in our neighbor, and we need to be kind. And we need
Yes.
to take care of ourselves in order to be able to do that. Because just to be able to get up and go out into a chaotic world, we need to be sure that we are truly caring for ourselves and having compassion for ourselves and eating healthfully and moving our bodies and getting enough sleep and being with friends and putting down our devices just to be in nature, to feel
Yes.
connected with
Yes.
the natural world, is one of the most important ways that I take care of myself. And I like to share with people that I meet, because it has a way of grounding us, no pun intended, and making us feel connected when we
Yes.
feel so overwhelmed.
Yes, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a therapeutic show for me, as I hope it has been for you. Again, the book is available on her website as well as on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. You have seen the LinkedIn page where you can reach her. I gather that's where they can reach you if they want to reach out to you, or even
Yes.
on your website. I
Or
think
my
you,
website, my email
yes,
is
email
dale
as
at
well.
drdaleatkins.com. Yes.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, we're about to sign off, so please stay tuned for another episode of Frank About Health next week. And thank you so much, Dale, for being here. And thank you, Jesse, behind the scenes for engineering this show. And we will all see you all next week. Take care.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. All right.